UN Ambassador Elise Stefanik. What do you make of these appointments, or the people that Trump wants to be appointed? Do you think they're all going to get through? And what would the ramifications be of having these particular people running these departments, do you think?
Well, if Trump wants them, they'll get through. Trump is the leader of the party. And very quickly, we have a difference of opinions on the following. I think a convicted criminal who was held liable for assaulting a woman and defamation and incite of violent insurrection to this day is the only president who refuses to admit that he lost. I think he's dangerous. I think that's a problem. Maybe my panelist doesn't, but I do. But I think facts matter.
In this video, Wajahat Ali torches Piers Morgan's panel for defending Trump's pro-Israel war hawks. And it gets heated real fast. Pro-Israel extremists, war hawks, and unqualified loyalists. He lays out how they backed violence, fueled chaos, and now threatened to drag the US into even more war. Meanwhile, Emily and Gaetz will go full spin mode, defending Trump's track record with pure propaganda. And Piers just lets it ride, giving cover to a panel more interested in excuses than accountability. So make sure to stick around till the end to see how Wajahat Ali torches Piers Morgan's panel for defending Trump's pro-Israel war hawks.
Donald Trump, when he ran, right, the first time, he said, I'm going to be pacifist, I'm not going to be interventionist. Well, who did he appoint in his cabinet the first time? Remember Pompeo, Gina Haspel, John Bolton, all these people were war hawks. And people forget, when Donald Trump came in, right, he promised, I'm not going to intervene, I'm not going to be aggressive. People forget. Drone strikes increased by 432%. People forget he kept us in Iraq and Afghanistan. People forget he ripped up the Iran deal. People forget he bombed Syria twice. People forget that he let Israel illegally annex the Golan Heights and move the embassy. He ripped up the Iran agreement. He killed Soleimani, right? He funded Saudi Arabia to continue genocide in Yemen. None of this is peaceful, right? This is all hawkish. Now you look at the appointments that you just mentioned. You see people like Secretary of Defense, right? The rest of the folks we can get to. But Secretary of Defense, this is putting lipstick on a pig, right? A Fox host who, by the way, bragged about not washing his hands for 10 years, says he doesn't want women in combat, almost killed someone with an axe on Fox News, Pete Hegseth. But in all seriousness, he's a Fox host who's not qualified at all. I think this one is going to be deeply problematic. The other ones we can quibble about.
He's a veteran with two bronze
But wait.
Let
me finish. I did not interrupt anyone.
Okay,
Pete Hegseth, in his book, right? Read his book. In his book, he himself said he was too extreme for the military. He is an Iraq veteran. He is hawkish. He wants a civil war. He wants to embolden some of these right-wing paramilitary movements. He wants Democrats and anyone who's a leftist to be attacked as the enemy. He is not qualified compared to Lloyd Austin. You could disagree with Lloyd Austin, Biden's pick, 4-star general, which is why you're going to get a lot of folks, even Republicans on the DL say, listen, this is Secretary of Defense. Donald Trump ran on strength, security, right? The Secretary of Defense is Pete Hegseth, a Fox anchor who's sure a veteran, has no experience, and these extreme policies. This was the one really big blunder.
All right,
this was the big blunder of all the picks.
Wajahat just dismantles Trump's fake non-interventionalist image in one go. Every name he lists, Pompeo, Bolton, Haspel, is a walking war crime. The guy who claimed he'd end endless wars? Yeah, he escalated them, bombed Syria, tore up the Iran deal, backed genocide in Yemen, and propped up Netanyahu at every turn. That's not peace. That's full-on militarism. And he comes to the worst pick of all, Pete Hegseth. Wajahat goes in on how unhinged this guy is, bragging about not washing his hands, hyping civil war, and pushing far-right culture war garbage. Fox News propaganda dressed up as defense policy. Trump didn't just pick a loyalist, he picked a dangerous ideologue with zero qualifications. This wasn't just a mistake, it's a signal of exactly where Trump wants to take foreign policy.
You know, Piers, you've had me on your show for the past year, and even though we have our disagreements, we have several agreements as well, especially with Israel's occupation of the West Bank and its treatment of Palestinians under occupation and the emboldenment of the violent settlers. One thing that is consistent with every single one of Trump's picks so far is that there are very hardcore right-wing pro-Israel hawks. That's the one thing that's shared by all of them. Now, what we're seeing in Israel for the past year, many people call it a genocide, war crimes, just numerous deaths. You and I have been in agreement about the numerous victims that we have all seen being killed by Israel. Donald Trump told Benjamin Netanyahu, he apparently speaks to him every day, go ahead and finish it, right? Do what you want. If you look at Mike Huckabee, of all the people to appoint as ambassador to Israel in this fraught moment where a lot of folks, it wasn't a major factor, but it was a factor. The war in Israel is a factor for a lot of Democrats to not vote for Kamala. That's why they didn't vote or went for Trump. Mike Huckabee refuses to call it, Israel-Palestine. He says Judea and Samaria. He refuses to say it's an occupation. He refuses to call them settlements. He calls them communities. He is a hard right white Christian nationalist on this. Also, the Mideast envoy that Trump picked, Stephen Witkoff, completely inexperienced, but hardcore Bibi supporter, Netanyahu supporter, hardcore Trump donor, zero experience, but is all in. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, hardcore interventionist, pro-Israel hawk. Now, look at the disaster of the past 13 months. Of all the choices that he could have made, this does not signal a person who wants peace. What it does is embolden Netanyahu, who has become more extreme, fired Yoav Gallant, his already extreme defense minister. They're going to take it all. They're going to take it all. And once they take it all, imagine the chaos, the violence. And especially if Netanyahu fulfills his ambitions to attack Iran, the Middle East is going to be a tinder keg, a powder keg. And U.S. is going to be completely complicit in that. What will that do to us, our forces, our security? It is a disastrous pick. And I think that's one thing that all folks, regardless of who they voted for, should be really concerned about. Are these going to be pro-Israel hawks who are going to throw gasoline into the fire of the Middle East and embolden extremists like Netanyahu? I hope there's some sane, cool heads there.
Okay.
But so far, this
I just want to
dangerous.
respond quickly to that. First of all, a lot of people don't know this, but Stephen Witkoff has a lot of experience in the Middle East. Because of his businesses and Trump's words, everything he touches turns to gold. He has a lot of foreign relationships, as a politician would through his businesses. So it's good that he has friendships overseas, including Qatar and all over the Middle East. Now, to go back to Mike Huckabee's point, the reason I prompted this question, which you failed to answer, is I was thinking today, okay, let's say Huckabee gets his way and the Jewish settlements allegedly are removed from the West Bank and Gaza goes back to the Arabs. How is that a solution for peace? You didn't answer my question. Why is it fair that Muslim Arabs are allowed in Israel, but Jews are not allowed in the West Bank or Gaza?
Before I come to Clay, Wajahat, just on that point, what is the answer to that question?
Wajahat makes it crystal clear. Trump's entire bench is stacked with far-right, pro-Israel extremists who don't just ignore Palestinian rights, but they actively cheer Netanyahu's most violent moves. These aren't just neutral picks. They're hardline ideologues who treat war crimes like strategy. And the way Wajahat frames it, Trump's not just enabling this, he's egging it on. Then Emily jumps in with this delusional defense of Trump's picks, acting like business connections somehow qualify someone to run foreign policy. It's classic fluff. And then she jumps to a wild line that Jews aren't allowed in the West Bank or Gaza, completely detached from reality, and obviously aimed at flipping the narrative to paint Palestinians as the real segregationists. Instead of addressing the apartheid system that actually exists, she tries to frame ethnic privilege as victimhood. Wajahat's entire breakdown gets ignored, and suddenly it's why can't Jews live wherever they want, as if that isn't exactly what violent settler expansion is doing right now.
I just want to know, does he think that that's normal or fair?
I think anyone who's witnessed this and anyone who cares about human rights and security knows that you have to end the occupation. Israel has to end the occupation and
So
give
Jews
Palestinians
can't live in the West Bank. Is that your answer?
a pathway toward self-determination. Jews already live in the West Bank. They occupy. They get the best water,
But you
the
want
best
them
security.
out.
They occupy Palestinian land. They're not going to come out.
So
If you
you
go and
want
see
the
the
Jews
support,
out.
unfortunately, all that
No, but
Palestinians
that's
have.
what you want.
Just on your show. Wait. All that Palestinians have is a moth-ridden piece of land, barely held together, 22%. And with that, even Palestinians are saying, fine, you occupied us, you took the best land, you have the settlements, there's 22% of land.
Israel. They are
Give
allowed
us
in
that.
Israel. Jews are not allowed in the West Bank or
Can I say this?
Gaza.
Why are you
No, but you're
okay with
spewing misinformation.
No. Why are you okay with anybody being occupied? And why are you
There's
okay
no
with denying
occupation.
freedom?
Do you know what an occupation is? If Muslims and
So you were
Arabs
with
were
Mike
not
Huckabee.
allowed in
That's
Israel with full sovereignty, I
Thank you.
want a two-state solution.
I got you
but
on
part
tape.
of a solution,
No occupation.
part of a solution, yeah, okay.
Okay,
Part
let me-
of a
all right.
solution is peace.
Emily,
There's
let
no
me-
peace when you
Emily-
segregate. That's racist.
Look, Donald Trump is going to bring peace, I really believe this, through strength. And let me give you an example of something that Kamala was never able to answer and that I've never heard a Democrat answer. If Trump was such a stooge of Vladimir Putin, why did Vladimir Putin wait till Trump left office to invade Ukraine? The answer, I think quite clearly, is he was afraid of how Trump would respond. He knew how Biden would respond, and he didn't fear him at all. That actually makes things more dangerous. Authoritarians, dictators respond based on threats, based on a fear of what the other side might do. Democrats are too weak. That leads to more war. I think the same thing has happened with Iran. I don't think, remember, all of this mess started when Hamas invaded Israel and killed 1,200 innocent people in cold blood mothers, babies, children, entirely because of the fact that they were Jewish. And let me just say this on the Mike Huckabee front. So, big picture, Piers, I think Trump is going to threaten dictators around the world with American power, and that threat, which he's acted on with Soleimani and other instances, remember ISIS, they aren't around very much anymore, does motivate their actions to be more rational and more embracing of peace.
By the end, Wajahat's still pushing for accountability, calling out the occupation, Trump's warmongering pics, and the media spin that enables it all. But when Gaetz starts painting Trump as some peacemaker and Emily's out here defending illegal settlements as communities, the whole thing turns into a PR panel for right-wing foreign policy. And Piers just lets it happen. No pushback, no fact-checking. Just another example of how these so-called debates get completely one-sided. And speaking of one-sided, are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.